Well, thank you for coming back to our event today, folks. I'm really, really glad to have you and have you here, Xavier Hawk, and I discuss this amazing opportunity that we have at this time where technology could hopefully meet the liberty and freedom movement and create a situation where rather than losing our ability to make our own choices and use our own common sense in our lives and have freedom and prosperity. The prosperity goes with freedom, of course. Having more and more control, which is the direction that it seems the centralizers are trying to take us right now in a very big way. So I was just going to ask Xavier to comment on some of the societies and corporations that we have seen operate extremely well without a very strong centralized hierarchical structure, and see if what he and his group at Phireon are doing could actually put something together to help make that happen, help facilitate that. So I just wanted to start with D-Hawk. D-Hawk started, he was the CEO and chairman of the board of a company called Visa. And when he took it over, Visa was way behind. It was nothing when he took it over. And the cards out there were MasterCard and American, what is it? The
American Express.
American Express, and they were way ahead. But Bank of America was they were pretty excited about having D-Hawk come in and take this over. And he took it over from scratch. And within 7 years, Visa was the largest commercial enterprise on planet Earth. The first company to have over $1 trillion in annual revenues. And he did it in within a few years. And how did he do it? When people looked at Visa, they could never figure out where the center was. You couldn't see the center because it was so diversified. He had pushed the decision-making, the decision-making process to the furthest limits of the organizational structure. The amount of people in the center of Visa was so small compared to any other company on the planet that people were blown away that it could actually operate. But it was this diversity of authority and pushing the authority to the furthest limits that made it work, that made it so incredibly successful. So that's one example. He called it, his book is called The Birth of the Chaotic Age. And chaord is a marriage of chaos or freedom and order. And his concept was to have as little order or control as possible, so that the amount of order was just enough to keep the company or the organizational structure from falling apart and dissolving, and then maximum amount of freedom and liberty. So that's the one I love to talk about. And his book is amazing because it lays it out how he did it. Gore and Associates is another one. Gore and Associates to this day has 10,000 people working there. They don't call them employees, they call them associates. And no one at Gore tells anyone else what to do. The company is divided into small groups of 8 to 12 people. Mm-hmm. And within a maximum of 150 people in one building. He found out a long time ago that when it got to more than 150, hierarchy and all these other things started to take place. So he built the buildings on their campus that would only hold 150 people. And what's interesting there is the Mennonites and the Hutterites had found the same thing over centuries of their civilization. Once a group got to over 150 people, they had to split in two. And so we see these things. Yeah, these are like, it seems like they're, to me, fundamental laws of nature at work here. If you want to have freedom and prosperity and growth and happiness, then you want to keep the organizational structure uncentralized as possible. And our founders certainly knew this. They absolutely knew this. And that's why they wanted the states to be strong, and particularly the local communities and the counties.
A republic, right?
A republic. They want all decision making, bottom line, I'll finish. Decision making should be at the local level. Almost every decision that's made that's going to affect your life should be at the local level. The only thing that would be done at the state level or the federal level are only the things that they had to be centralized and nothing else. And of course, that's been flipped on its head in this country in the last 250 years.
Yeah.
So that's where we are at. And I just wanted to give you that kind of picture. So how can we use technology? Because this technology that you talk about on your website seems like it could be used one of two different ways, very different ways. One way to help the centralizers make it easier to take control and keep control of the people, or just the opposite. It
Correct.
could be used to develop a society which was very diverse, very bottom up. The people were very free, and we'd have like the blockchain and structures in there that could defend liberty and individual rights. So, okay, so you got the picture. I think everybody listening has the picture. I don't think anybody's going to be listening to this that isn't for liberty and freedom. So
right
tell us what you can do and what you guys are up to that could help us do this.
Right on. Well, thanks for having me, Clyde. I'm really honored to be able to speak about this. I think it's a super important topic, especially now with everything that's going on and the way it's going on. We're seeing big pushes towards complete centralization and not voluntarism, but essentially coercion at the very primal level, playing on everybody's fears, right, and pushing them into a corral, essentially, of what you just described, a very centralized panopticonic structure of global
livestock management.
Correct. Two-legged livestock management. Right. And the fact is that these technologies are coming to the fore. They are being implemented. The question is by whom and to what ends? And if we are here building a system that is to balance out that, in the sense that the beast system, if you want to call it that, is being built, and you are being corralled into it already, unconsciously, subconsciously, through the phones that you use, the media messaging that you're getting, and
masks.
Yep, Phireon stands as a beacon and or a lifeboat in the face of that, and saying, we are collectively more intelligent than any supercomputer or quantum computer on the planet as a species if we have a reasonable and well-architected means of communicating and decision-making and consensus deriving. How do we come to consensus? We can do that really quickly now with the technology that we have. We have all the tools to be able to clean up the planet, make it a beautiful place worth living in and being born in. It's just a matter of how are we appropriating that technology in a way that's to our benefit and to all beings' benefit. Because right now, the paradigm of human consciousness is such, like, we need to control, we need to gain power, keep that power, and stay on top of the hill. And they're terrified, those that are on top of the hill are terrified of the mobs around. And the reason they are is because they're seeing a mirror of themselves. They're saying, we are people who have gone and taken and, usurped and taken advantage of and done all these horrible things to achieve this level of dominance. And so therefore, everybody must be the same way. And if they're not, they're stupid cows that deserve to be managed because we are competent enough to understand the game and know how to take advantage of it. That's a horrible mirror to see through, right?
That's very well put, yeah.
The terror of your own unconsciousness and your own degenerative perspective, egoic perspective of the world. When in reality, the majority of humans just want to get on with their day, have a good time, and spend good time with their family and loved ones. Explore and create, make music, be artistic, be creative, and give glory to the creator. Right. So taking that as the basic premise, that's where Phireon lives. We're like, most humans want to do good. The majority of humans want to do good. In fact, it's the minority that want to usurp or take control, and they've managed to get on the top because they're very clever, right? And they've used the technology to their advantage with the primal subconscious, framework of dominate or be destroyed. So, where organizations like, okay, let's take we had touched on bees and how I just did this yesterday, by the way. I was taking care of our bees and we had to do a split because they had gotten to be too many bees in one box, right? And so they had naturally started a new queen. And so we just split split the boxes, took a bunch of the bees, put them in there, and put a new queen and then with them. And so it's the natural order of things, right? Otherwise, they would just take off and go fly to find some other place to live. But we wanted to keep the hive growing, and keep collecting honey and, keep propagating the plants around us. So it's the same thing with organizations, like you had touched on earlier. 8 to 12 people create a cohort, and you're able to make decisions and come to consensus relatively quickly in that kind of a group dynamic. And then, it grows into greater levels of stratification, where it's like then, 8 groups of 8, and then, on and on and on and so forth.
Exactly.
And so, and you get to, like, I think it's 164 or something like that, numbers of people. But it also goes back to, tribes, Native American tribes, or any cultural,
The Iroquois were an example to our founders, Benjamin Franklin, Jefferson. Yeah.
In fact, they were a inspiration for the United States Republic. They're also an inspiration for Phireon. The idea of having regions and of representative ideologies or tribes, and guilds, if you will. And then also the Swiss, right? That is the most decentralized government on the planet at this time. They have 10 presidents, each whom rotate every year or every 2 years on a rotating basis. Right?
Nobody knows who the president of Switzerland is.
Correct, because there are 10 of them. And they each equally hold power in that regard. So there's no centralized decision-making or bottlenecking or power that could be corruptible there. And it's a small country, but each canton has its own president, and you can basically go to your president's home, knock on his door, and be like, stop doing this, that, or the other thing. So there's that immediate social engineering accountability. But when you get to a large organization like a government, even a municipality or state level, in the early days, the senators represented maybe 14,000, 20,000, maybe 100,000 people. And now that's ballooned to like sometimes 15 million people. There's no way you can have a direct accountable relationship to all of those people. And that allows that sort of corruption. Then you throw in the federalization that you talked about, where it used to be that if your state senator was acting up and you didn't like what they're doing, you could recall them. That federalization took place in like the early 1900s, late 1800s, and you couldn't recall your senators. Now, all of a sudden, they could run amok in Washington and do all sorts of dastardly deeds, and you couldn't hold them accountable. So it's that corruption that allows that lack of accountability that allows the long-scale corruption that we're now experiencing now, where the system itself cannot function in the way that it's needed to maintain civilization in any manner and order, right? So Phireon seeks to remedy this by creating essentially like a banking cartel, a cooperative banking system that everybody who uses it is part owner. And in a very much similar regard to DHawk's like structure for Visa, all the power and decision-making is decentralized into those communities that the corporation serves. It's not the other way around. The corporation's not there to use you as human resources. It's there to serve you and help you become the best being that you can be with the most value that you can bring to the organization, because then it benefits everybody. What
DHawk called it was a non-coercive enabling organization. That's what the center should be. Non-coercive enabling organization, not controlling, not centralizing power, but there to uplift and help all the individual parts.
Correct.
Telling them what to do.
Correct. And one thing about a capitalist system that's so great is that it allows people to innovate and be able to, without regard for race, creed, religion, gender, or anything, provide value into a system and then get rewarded for that value. You could be purple with 3 eyes and you create a cool widget that everybody likes, and nobody cares that you're purple with 3 eyes, right? So we take that a step further and say, okay, well, there's socialism that everybody's sort of scared about, but there are things that are good about socialism insofar as that you're thinking about the whole. How do we balance that properly, where it's a capitalist system where you're producing value, but you're part of a cooperative system where I'm not out there trying to outperform you for my own benefit or for my family's benefit or for my future generation's benefit, but it is in my best interest that you also succeed. Right? So what we have is a system where we are all owners in the same corporation, and we're doing business with each other inside that corporation. And the greater degree to which you succeed is the greater degree to which I succeed.
Everyone wins.
All succeeds. Exactly. Rather than competition, nature, they determined nature is not competition. It's actually cooperation. You've got cooperation between various different biomes and species, to create what we call the web of life, right? And they don't outcompete each other. They cooperate to find homeostasis. And that's what we as a species should be seeking, in my opinion.
And
Because
they're actually essential to one another.
correct,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
so if we're building a system that's based off of like the Iroquois and the Swiss, then you've got a centralized council, let's say, who are there to be essentially janitors. Anybody who's a leader, in my mind, should be a janitor in service and enabling, as you said, to enable the world around them or the business around them. All good CEOs are servant leaders in a sense. They're there to make sure that everybody in the business is feeling good, doing good, and optimizing their performance, right? And to have optimal performance, you also need to have happy human beings, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like it's enlightened self-interest in the sense that we want the CEO wants the corporation to succeed. So by that token, they therefore want all of their employees to be at their optimal, feeling good, being healthy, inspired, and most productive. So it's in Phireon, it's in our best interest, our collective best interest, that you are educated, that you are healthy, that you are wealthy, that you are wise, that you operate in harmony with your cohorts. And so, you know, there's that decentralized governance structure where each community has its own council or its own governance system. Then each collection of communities in a region have their own. And if they make decisions together, then it affects them. They get to make their own decisions however they see fit, you know? And then once it starts building up and the sphere of influence grows, then it becomes, how do we make those decisions together and come to consensus? The communication, the app channels where everybody has their conversation, puts their point of view across in a constructive way, and then come to a decision and vote on it.
Right.
So,
And one of the things that was interesting with working with John David Garcia and his book Creative Transformation, and Bob Podolsky in his book Flourish, was that you could actually have most of the decisions being made that were unanimous, because in a group of 6 to 8 people, you can say, okay, we're gonna have, whenever possible, we're gonna have our decision making be unanimous.
Yep.
Then there's no minority that's feeling like they're not part of the decision making process. And there's ways to do that that are very, very, very successful.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, the more that you can make it, you know, so that there's not a minority that feels like they're left out, the better off you're going to be. But you can only do that in smaller, you know, where most of the decisions are made in small groups, you know.
Correct. Yeah. But as what will become a very large corporation, it's important that everybody has, so the decisions get to be, you know, distributed, and everybody gets to make and have those conversations together.
Exactly.
And then they come to a consensus amongst themselves, and then they talk to their next cohort over their next cohort, and they find like, oh, we came to the same thing. Or if they didn't, then they can actually then address why we had a problem with it. Oh, well, we see that wouldn't work this way, but it would work that way. Oh, that makes sense, you know. And it just kind of cycles through, and then it all filters to the top. And then again, the council members are really just janitors to execute upon the decision. And then things like AI, they're not there making the decisions for everybody. They're there providing information, right? Data that we might not take into account or whatever, but then also to be of service to like initiate those conversations with a greater degree of accuracy and transparency, which then becomes like a whole blockchain voting system and, you know, liquid democracy and holography and, you know, human design. So taking all these things into account, you know, what Visa did was revolutionary. And they just kind of took the convention, threw it on its head, and said, well, we're going to try it this way because we're going to try to operate from trust. And what are they doing? They're enabling transactions. They're processing transactions, which is like, if you think about it, the blood of the body, right? It's like processing the transference of oxygen from the outside to the vital nutrients or the vital parts of the body where the oxygen's needed. So it's like one of the most vital components of a body system, right? And if we're basing our design on human design and making it very anthropomorphic in that regard, you know, we are looking to also process transactions, and that produces a lot of revenue. So what then do we do with all that revenue? Where in Visa's case, it's still like a decentralized governance system, let's say, but with a centralized funnel of resources. So all that money goes to a small group of people. So your economic life force is being harvested, your purchasing power, your calories, your hours, your dollars, your passion, and then being harvested for one centralized pool. Whereas in Phireon, that one centralized pool is voted upon and decided upon and executed upon by the body of the people who are using the system, because they're part owners and members. They get to vote on how that pool of profits gets utilized. So if we want to build schools, or we want to build another branch or business, business division, or another Phireon hub where people live, work, and play, like, or we want to purchase commodities to back our business with, our assets, our transactional currency with, and create a stable price trade reference instrument. These are all decisions that everybody gets to take part in. So we decentralize it even further to how are we going to decentralize our growth and our direction in civilization and our direction in space and time, and we have the technology that we can actually literally incorporate everybody, pay them micropayments for their attention, for their viewpoints, for their perspectives, their opinions, and have them involved and incentivized to take part and be educated in the discussion.
Interesting. Fascinating.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's like, how do we take that sort of predatory corporate system and turn it into a service-based system? Like Amazon's like, we want to have the best customer service. It's like, well, sorry, you can't have the best customer service when your customers are your feed crop. It's like saying, okay, well, we want to have a organic farm or a free-range chicken farm. It's like, yeah, that's great, but when you start owning their data, when you start owning their medical data, providing them housing and all of these other things, and you're a centralized corporation, all you are is two-legged cow managing, right? When we're talking about having a truly distributed civilization where everybody's voice matters in steering Spaceship Earth, they can't be simply just customers. They have to be incentivized to be a part of the system, part owners.
Owners, yeah. And that's when I first met Bill Gore. This was back in 1985. And by that time, I'm pretty sure he was already a billionaire by that time. Gore had been in business since 1958 and was doing extremely well. And we had him over at our house for lunch, and we handed each other our cards. And my card said, co-founder, chairman of the board, CEO. And he handed me his card, and it said Bill Gore, associate.
Yeah.
And everyone else is an associate. In other words, his title was the same as the next person they would hire the next day.
Correct. Yes.
And what he did with all the corner offices, he turned them into like libraries or things, so that nobody had a bigger office, including him.
That's amazing.
So now what he realized is that these kinds of these layers, like, they have a negative impact on people. And when people come in and they feel like they're part of the family right now, and they can do anything that the CEO does to help build the company, it changes the whole mindset of everybody there.
You get rid of those egoic stratifications where people play these stupid mind games where, like, oh, yeah, and then they end up vying for those things as if that had some sort of value, when really all that is a psychological staving off of the fear of death. Like, I have status, I have importance, therefore I'm less likely to die. That's like the psychological game that people play. And it's because of that fundamental fear of dying and the lack of understanding of what we really are in these places, in this place that we call here and now. And when you get rid of those, and when you incentivize true, like, equitability, right? Like,
and it actually emphasizes performance, because at core, when you introduce yourself to groups, when you come in there, you don't know what's going on, and so you go around to different groups and you negotiate. This is what I can do, and this is what do you need me to? Do you need this skill? And then they'll find their place. But guess what? If they don't perform, there's not going to be a place for them.
It's merit-based, right?
In merit-based. I mean, if you got to be able to perform to stay in that company.
Correct.
You can't just float around and pretend.
Correct. Like, in a group of 8, everybody knows that kid in science class who didn't do anything but was just part of the group and got an A because the other 2 really worked. So in Phireon, everybody's associates as well. That's the exact same term that we have. You can be a member when you're you're just a member owner or whatever. But the minute you get some training that you take online in the app, then you become an associate. You can actually grow the company, start doing things for the company, and getting a paycheck from the company. So there's like stratification levels. Like there are free users who are not part of the payment processing. So there's large levels of stratification. But we also have, because it's a corporation and not just like a free social app, it is a corporation whose job is to grow and to bring bounty and balance to the ecosystems and to the human ecosystems that take part. There is like a very value-based merit system where you come in and it's kind of like a role-playing game. If you're familiar with like Dungeons and Dragons or any RPG, you get stats, right? And in those stats, you can actually, through the course of gameplay, you can increase those stats and have greater reward and or greater functionality in the game. So we gamify, Phireon gamifies your corporate life, your socio-corporate life, essentially, where there's quantifiable stats. When you come in, you're measured. You give your own interpretation of your own, your own financial capital or your various forms of capital, and then your cohort or your group of friends, they will also do the same for you. They'll answer like a series of questions, like a dating app, essentially, and that'll give you a rating in each one of these 8 or 9 verticals. And so you're not going to just go and create a bunch of friends because they all have to answer questions about you and they might not know anything about you. So what we'll do is we get a way to say, oh, look, we know you get to see who your group is, and then you all kind of are rating each other, and then we get a good idea, somewhat good idea, of what your actual skills sets are.
Right.
Kind of like in LinkedIn, where it's like, oh, I'm good at this, and then everybody says, yes, they're good at them at this or that. But how do you know really, right? So when we quantify that, and a couple of my friends who are in this space are very like, this is the Chinese social credit system. I'm like, look, that exists already. They're already doing that in this centralized top down. Like, we have to outperform that. And the only way to do that is to put that power, that definition of merit and cultural value in the hands of the people, right? And say, here are your different skill sets. How do we best gamify that? How do you best find your niche, right? What skills you're passionate about and what you're good at. And then when I go and do a search for somebody who's a lumberjack or I need something built, I can go and see the rest of the community and see who's good and say, hey, I'm offering you earth credits or whatever, payment is a bounty to accomplish this job. I see that you've got 7 stars out of 10, right? In lumber or in, construction. Right. Yeah. So it's like a way of determining value, but not just financial value, but skills, like all of these different, it's a really complex algorithm, but it's really simple if you understand role-playing games, right? We're literally, and this is a hot topic right now for, corporations, is how do you gamify people's advancement in the corporation? And like, you have HR reviews and all of this, but since there's no hierarchy, it's really like it's like biofeedback. You actually get that immediate feedback from your community. Again, like the science experiment, everybody tells you like, hey, you're not doing well enough to earn this A+ that we're all doing together, right? So, it's like taking the corporate structure and decentralizing it further to include the customers.
Yeah, and what you said there is very important. The feedback loops have to be very free flow. They have to be very open. And unrestricted. One of the things that Gore said, one of his favorite quotes was when he was at DuPont. He was at DuPont before he started Gore. And it was because every once in a while at DuPont, they would form teams of 6 or 8 people, and they would just say, okay, we want this done. And they actually allowed them the freedom of those 6 or 8 people to get a job done. And after doing that a couple of times, he went, oh my God, this is so different, because the normal hierarchy restricts that flow. The boss is afraid of giving too much information to the guy below him because he doesn't want that guy to surpass him, right? Yeah. There's all that political stuff going on. So one of his favorite quotes was, at DuPont or any of these hierarchical organizations, the only meaningful conversation took place in the carpool on the way to work.
Because nobody was afraid.
And as soon as they got to work, it was all this, everything's restricted.
Yeah. And nobody likes that kind of environment. I mean, the most beauty is created when souls are allowed to be bountiful and unrestricted.
Right. Right.
You know, and having like a core set of values is important, and having sort of parameters within which to work.
You have to have a structure. You have to have a structure.
Yes, but and it's balance, right? You need to have that structure that's open enough to be able to make mistakes, figure out things. And there's this great study that was done, and I forget the name of the people who did it, but it was essentially they took doctorates and kindergartners, and they put the doctorates in one room, the kindergartners in another room. They didn't tell each other that there was another team that they were cooperating against or competing against. And they gave them simple things like marshmallows and sticks and stuff, and they had to build a structure that was, you know, the highest structure that they could build in the shortest amount of time, like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Sort of like Odyssey of the Mind type things.
Yeah. And I mean, the kindergartners outperformed the PhDs or the doctorates over and over and over again. Right. And they would take the doctorates in to go look at the kindergartners, and the doctorates like, what the hell is going on? You know, and the reason why is because the kindergartners just thought like kindergarten. They just stuck things together, tried it, and you know, nobody cared if they looked stupid because they didn't know yet that there was a thing in human civilization, right? Whereas the doctorates had all been like geared, you know, to not screw up and not be outside of the bounds and all of this. And the kindergartners outperformed them. And it's like, there's the hint that, you know, that sort of a structure is not good. You need to have that freedom to be creative and empower. Again, it comes back to like trusting God, humanity, yourself, really, because if you're looking out in the world saying, I don't trust anybody to make right decisions, it's because you don't trust yourself, right? Because you've done horrible things or whatever. So we have to break that sort of subconscious psychology of the human psyche and really demonstrate like we as a species together cooperating can, again, outperform any quantum computer, because that quantum computer cannot imagine, it cannot create, it can only create probabilities from past data, and past data is dead by the very fact that it's not now.
Well, look what's happening right now. Right now, we've had the media, the communications in this country owned by 5 different companies. All, virtually until recently, until within the last few years, all of the media was controlled by 5 companies who all thought alike. And then we had a government and CIA and the FBI, people influencing the media in such a way that everything was basically controlled. And now what we see is people are waking up to that. They're waking up to the fact that information is controlled and centralized. And now we have all these other things coming out of ways for you to get information. And the ratings droppings, the ratings have been dropping dramatically in those fundamental, you know, the mainstream media, you would call it. And so what's happening is people are yearning for more information, true information, to get away from the propaganda and the controlled media and the fear and all that stuff. And this is starting to pop up. And I was talking, I interviewed Foster Gamble the other day, you know, and he has a network all over the world now. And what his main focus right now is, and this is, we need to talk to him, is he wants to create a network of networks. Freedom-loving people, creating networks, having a place to go where they can all network together and know what everybody else is doing. So when he told me that, I thought of you, and I thought of what you're doing, and I said, let's go there, because we already have, I mean, he had, his 2 movies have had, I think he said it was either 72 million or 92 million confirmed views worldwide.
Yeah.
So let's say it's 72 million. That's a lot of people, all right? Yeah. And that's just the confirmed views. It's probably more than that. It's been translated into 27 languages. And I think we need to stop thinking nationally. I think we need to start thinking globally.
100%. Yeah. In fact, it's so fundamental to that unstructured, decentralized freedom of thought that is critical to innovation and to purposeful living. You know, that 5th grader or the 5-year-old sort of mentality where it's like anything kind of goes. We need to have a protected space, a free speech area. Like the internet needs to be protected by what we have as the Second Amendment, what used to exist in the United States before big tech started censoring everybody. What we need is a safe space that cannot be deplatformed, that has no central point of failure, no data center that is owned or operated by Google or Amazon or any of these people. I was going to curse. What we need is a decentralized platform that is non-hackable, essentially, not removable. What we have is that actual platform. We have a layer on top of the World Wide Web that is blockchain based, that is immutable, and that you can place data on, and it's distributed across all of the users so that no one point of failure exists. Then we have an operational layer on top of that, which is an actual social media platform and economic governance tool with, and by economic governance tool, I mean a payments platform with a governance model on top of it so that we can make decisions. And then you stick a fun social media, apparatus on top of that. And then you have basically a portal into communication with everybody that's clean, that's secure, that's accountable, and that maintains your privacy by scrambling your data with every interaction that you do, so that even if we get subpoenaed, we can hand over the data and it's like, good luck figuring it out. We don't. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's essentially what we're building. And we have a lot of interest from people like Foster and above in terms of reach and influence. And it's important that we start building these networks and give people meaningful ways to interact with one another that's safe. We can exchange ideas and come up with the best solutions together as a collective species, and really build the framework for the soul.
Let's get going, because we need to get this going right now and bring people together.
Behind the eight ball. Yes.
Yeah. So what do you think the first step needs to be to get this going?
We're speaking with a number of really crazy, amazing investors right now, and we're about to close our our Series A. Basically, we raised a bunch of money. We put that to good use, and we've got the MVP out on the social app store, the Apple Store, and the Google Play Store. We're starting to play with that, beta test it, figure out how we're building the underlying models. The distributed World Wide Web is like 2 weeks away. We have, I think I've told you about this before in the other interview we did, we have a sensor that goes in the camera in our phones, in the Phireon phones, that allows us to scan for diseases, to do remote medicine. It's essentially the Star Trek tricorder. We have building materials that are electric conductive. They produce electricity and are super insulative to reduce heating and cooling costs. And we have a lot of really cutting edge technology that hasn't even hit the market yet, in conjunction with this social governance app. So we really have the tools to bring and demonstrate and make in the real world, that new earth sort of divine architected structure. So for us, like, if there are people who want to invest, like, you're kind of late, but hit me up or hit up Clyde. We've got backing by a number of different banks. We have an authentication system for KYC that not even the banks have, that it's like reserved for the central banks.
KYC, explain.
Yeah, KYC is know your client.
Oh,
so
okay.
One of the challenges with like Facebook is like you enter your name, but you could put anybody's name, like Tony the Enforcer, right, as your name, and it doesn't have a way to really validate that. They try to get you to validate, put your ID, but why would you do that? You're getting no value out of it. They're using you as a guinea pig, essentially, right? So with us, it's like you actually pay a membership, and what we do is we make it 1 day's wages in whatever nation you're in, so that it levels the economic playing field around the world, so that people can start taking part in a global economy. So $75 in the United States, maybe $2 in Uganda, whatever it is, just to claim your stake, claim your part in it, and then you can start taking part as part owner and start making decisions, processing transactions, just like Visa or MasterCard. So next steps for us is we're about to close a large capitalization round. We're waiting for, we already sold 14 licenses for the app, which will be bringing in a great deal of revenue here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And maybe 3 to 6 months from there, we'll have the first decentralized app out on the interwebs that's completely blockchain enabled and non-hackable or non-removable. And we have some large personality.
Will that first app be enough to take, like, say, my group and your group and Foster's groups and all these different groups, and have them start to communicate with each other without being
That's the plan. Yep. Without
nobody would be able to get in, right?
Well, the only way they'd be able to get in is if they agree to to play by the rules, essentially.
Right.
You know, and there's like we have a pledge, you know, like to pledge our heart and mind and eyes to the, you know, appropriate living of the planet and the species and balance, equilibrium, and all of that. But then also it's like you have to do a questionnaire, you know, and fill out, and so we get to know who you are. And again, it's not because we are the corporation using you as our cattle for feedstock. It's that we are building a business together, and to do that, we have to have that basis of trust. And it's built in such a way that that's set up so that bad actors can't come in and try to cooperate or co-opt it, you know, without going through a great deal of expenditure. You know, you've got to figure, if you want to own a greater part of the vote, then you have to put in a lot of money, and it's just not worth it for the outcome. So the way we prevent gamifying of and corrupting of the system is by making it really expensive for them to do so. You know, whereas like you can go set up a robot and create a whole bunch of Facebook accounts or Twitter accounts or whatever. There's no way to do that with the functional core of this company.
Okay.
And so we have like 200 million users on deck waiting to get on board once we're launched. You know, we've got a huge,
really,
yeah, we've got a huge network in Europe, and we've got a huge network in the United States of large faith-based organizations. I mean, you name it, like everybody on the planet's waiting for this and like looking for it. And they're trying to go to Telegram and all these other places when really it's Phireon, and they just don't know it yet.
Yeah. Well, this is timely. It's very, very timely. So when do you think you can really launch? How soon?
We're going to have our Phireon phones hopefully to market in midsummer.
Okay.
And then the MVP should also be coming out around about that time. And then we'll be adding more and more layers of improvement upon that. We have like essentially what's a HIPAA compliant blockchain, which means we can store medical data without fear of it being hacked. Or as if it is hacked and the data is taken, it's not tied to any individual. So they might find like the mass medical data of a large population of people, but not be able to target you. Or
we can literally have our own healthcare system, though, right?
That's the plan, 100%. Like once we are in operations and the corporate structure is set up and decentralized within the various jurisdictions, and as a sovereign banking entity that is outside of the national structures, we are our own sovereigns. Then we're able to create our own healthcare system, essentially. That's more based on our true medicine, our true preventive.
Yes. And as we were talking the other day, yeah, on our health and wellness summit, and you were mentioning the fact that we could actually pay people for being well and doing things that will make them well.
Correct.
So you know, you'll actually be financially motivated to be healthy.
Exactly. Because we're a cooperative, we benefit. The more healthy and well and competent you are, the more healthy, well, and competent the whole is.
Right, right. And so it could just completely change the whole concept of everything: health, money, finance.
And it's one little thought, like it's not competition of capitalism, it's cooperative capitalism, right? It's not socialism where we just hand out stuff and like, you know, take from others to give to others. It's cooperative capitalism where, and I might just have coined that term, I'm not sure. But it's where the strength of the system is dependent upon the strength of the individuals in a good framework and architecture.
Yeah, yeah, and the motivations are there to keep it that way.
Yeah,
yeah, the financial motivations are all there to keep it that way. Well, it sounds incredible. I think this has been really exciting. We probably should do this again in a few months when you're
happy to.
Yeah. And anything that what would you suggest people do right now other than go to your website?
Yep. So Phireon.com is the website, Phireon. We also have a very lively Telegram chat, which is t.me/Phireon, Phireon. And then
let's say that again. T.me.
Yep. That's M as in Mary, E as in elephant, t.me/Phireon, Phireon.
Okay.
And I do a weekly meeting there, a weekly fireside Zoom chat, essentially with the community there. We have a couple thousand members, and each week I give updates on where we are in our adventure, basically. You know, who I'm meeting with, what we're doing, what the products are, what the timetables are. It's basically like
What
like
night is that?
a board meeting every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we finish off with a global peace meditation.
Oh, cool.
Yep. And I do a very wacky, very offensive daily weekday news broadcast called Baseline on all of the social media platforms except for Twitter, because they kicked me off.
Well, that's to be congratulated for that. That's a sign of that you're doing the right thing.
Feather in my cap. We need a zone of free speech and protected free speech for the free exchange of ideas, so that the best ones can rise to the top.
So how do they get to the Baseline show?
On any social media platform besides Twitter, just find me at Xavier Hawk, XAVIER HAWK.
Okay. So the Hawk Baseline show, Xavier Hawk, and that's on all the social media other than Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they want to go to Telegram, which I would recommend, t.me/Phireon, Phireon, and there you have a weekly fireside chat there, and Monday 11 Eastern time.
Correct.
All right. I think that pretty well covers it. That's awesome. Great talk, and very exciting. You need to just keep working on this and putting all this together and organizing all these freedom groups, people that are doing this. There's this, I just think if you can connect everybody that's working on this, the power of all these people around the world working for this goal of freedom and love. And it's basically what we're talking about.
We can do it.
Yeah.
We can 100% do it. In fact, this is how we get the world of our dreams. Everybody has to agree. All the leaders of the world have been manipulating everybody using the stick of fear instead of the carrot of inspiration. The last leader who was like, we have a goal that we can all work towards together was Nixon. I'm not sorry, not Nixon, Kennedy, right? He was, we're going to the moon and we're going to create a beautiful world and all of this stuff. And what did they do? They popped him, right? Because that threatened somebody's fear-based agenda. So if there's enough of us and all of us have a clear idea of where we're going and the basic roadmap or the basic treasure map, then they can't take us all out. They're going to certainly try, but it's not going to succeed.
You know who saw this coming like over 200 years ago?
Ooh.
I'm going to prove it to you right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is a quote from Thomas Jefferson.
Mm.
Yeah, this was 1781. The Revolutionary War wasn't quite over yet. The spirit of the times will alter. Our rulers will become corrupt, our people careless. From the conclusion of this war, we shall be going downhill. It will not then be necessary to resort every moment to the people for support. They will be forgotten, therefore, and their rights disregarded. They will forget themselves, but in the sole faculty of making money, and will never think of uniting to effect a due respect for their rights. The shackles, therefore, will be made heavier and heavier till our rights shall revive or expire in a convulsion. So he pretty much saw that, we had this amazing freedom. Actually, they had a lot of freedom even before they fought England. But then, it was going to be, it was an amazing time of freedom, the whole 1800s. In the 1800s, that century, America went from this little country of a couple million, almost 3 million people, to in 1906, in 100 years, our country had 5% of the land and 6% of the people in the entire world, and we were producing over half of everything: clothes, building materials, food. On the entire planet, we were producing more than 50% of everything.
Because they were no longer subjects. They were no longer under a pyramidal control system of monarchy. They were separated sovereign individuals to a certain degree, and they didn't have the panopticonic systems of surveillance that we do now. They couldn't track you down to make you pay your permits. They do have all of that now. As civilization has increased, the infiltration into our individual lives has also increased. And so we need to understand that game and how to, armor ourselves, not just individually, but as a collective, against the principalities that would seek to enslave.
Yeah, and then well, like he said, and he realized that the freedom we would have would diminish because people won't pay attention, and that's what's happened. People didn't pay attention, and they let all this centralization happen. Now we've got force and fear rather than freedom and love, and it's the force and fear has reached a point where we either fight back and join together and work together to restore freedom and love, or human races.
Yep. I like to think of it, rather than resisting or fighting back, as building something new and better. That's more.
Yeah, that fighting back really isn't the thing.
Exercising your liberty, right? It's using it, not in resistance to tyranny, but in
exactly right. We need to stand up for our rights, and we need to talk, and we need to teach others, and we need to be, using our love. That
Correct.
ability of us to love our families and each one of us.
And it has to be cultural, not just economic, or like, hey, here's a new way of doing business, or a new business that you can join, or a new job you can get. It's like, here is a new way of expressing the human global collective culture.
Right.
Music, dance, creativity, authorship, the fundamental expression of the human spirit.
The way John David Garcia put it in Creative Transformation: creativity, love, truth, and awareness are all logical equivalents of each other. In other words, if you love somebody and you increase their love, you're also going to increase their creativity. You're going to increase their truth. You're going to increase their awareness. So those four things really are logical equivalents. And what he thought was an ethical action is whenever you increase the creativity of another human being, that without harming anybody else, that could be your ethical principle. And that would be in concert with every religion, every spiritual path in the world has ever known. And you're always going to be increasing their love, their creativity, their truth, and their awareness.
There was a study done where they found that the optimal amount of income that an individual would require is somewhere between $70,000 and $100,000, because you get more than that, there's no increase in happiness. They correlated income with happiness, and they found that once you hit $70,000 a year, between 70 and 100,000, your happiness plateaued. So if you made, bajillion more dollars, it didn't make you more happy. In fact, there was actually some that went down in terms of happiness.
You have more to worry about.
Yeah, but if you have the basics where you can be doing a job that you find fulfilling, with enough free time to enjoy, with enough resources and financial security to enjoy that time off and have that time, people were stoked. They were happy, and there was that CEO who put their salary, they capped everybody's salary at 70,000, including his own. And his company, like, there's a number of articles out about him. I forget his name, but he looks like Jesus. He's got long hair and a beard and whatever. Really happy looking guy in all of his pictures, and all of his employees, like, they still are doing really successfully, the whole company. And it's like you had said earlier, it's that stratification, getting rid of those like false, status paradigms. Yeah. And so there you go. I think that this is like a great goal to move towards. And anybody you want to put me in touch with that you think would be inspired by this or help this move forward, I'm totally stoked.
All right. Well, we've reached our time limit now, but anyway, I got it one more time, everybody. So the one place is social media baseline. There's a show on all the social media platforms except Twitter called Baseline.
It's at XAVIER HAWK. Don't search for Baseline, search for XAVIER HAWK.
Oh yes, XAVIER HAWK, and the show is Baseline, right?
Yep.
And the website is t.me/Phireon, Phireon.
Correct. That's the Telegram site where everybody's chatting.
That's Telegram, right? Okay, man. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Clyde, thank you. This was great. I really love the opportunity.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And we'll be back again with Xavier, and probably this summer when things really start to get together for your company. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Hey.